Let me just see. Let me just get the settings right here. I need... The hotkeys are stuff that you need to get used to. Let's see. 4, blue team F, red team F2. Alright, so let's do that. Fog of War. There we go. So now we have the proper Fog of War. Got you tracked. But we do need one other thing. Scoreboard items. That doesn't help. Oof, good damage. Yep, that's the level 1 Urgot W for you. That's not it. Menu. Find scoreboard. There we go. X.
Homer,
X.
I have a question.
Sure.
I hope you don't take it the wrong way. Why is Blushing Boo always like really mean to me in chat?
Always wait, what in chat?
It's like really rude to me in chat all the time.
I wish I had a good answer for you. He is just a person that, sort of like my sister, means well but doesn't really know necessarily how to be polite.
Okay, I just...
It's nothing personal, I can assure you.
Yeah, I just hope I didn't do anything wrong.
No, it's nothing personal. It's just who he is.
Okay.
Alright, so starting off, one thing I will say is you really do not want to be fighting Volibear early on. You are much weaker than him. So looking for these fights, they wouldn't work out because just in general, Volibear is much stronger. This is true with many champions, but also... hold on, we really weren't paying attention. I kind of want to look at this again because I wasn't paying any attention. So first things first. He hits 2 first. So you really don't want to be fighting him when he's 2. And you ended up trying to look for an extended fight with him when he's level 2. Not a good idea. Like, at that point, once it was obvious that he was going to hit level 2 first, and remember, the first person to kill off the first melee minion on the second wave will hit 2, unless you've already killed a ward, which you can do as Urgot. At level 1, with a W, you can kill a ward. But when the other guy is going to obviously hit level 2 first, you need to just back away at that point, because you're not going to win that trade.
No, I didn't know that because it's my first season playing Urgot, because last season I played a lot of Zac mid, so...
Well, it's true in every lane. The first person to get the melee on the second wave will hit level 2, and in general, a person who's level 2 will always beat somebody who's level 1. So just as a safety precaution, if you're not pushing in, if you're not going to be the one to get that first one, then you got to be careful. And yeah, again, just in general, I would highly recommend not fighting early on. Especially against a champion like Volibear, as we saw right there. He just wins by default. He's not even using his abilities particularly well. He's just using them to shove. Let him shove. Just collect the farm. That's all you really need to do. If you are basically just spending the early portion of the game just hard farming, then you're good. Also, yeah, you should have teleported a little more quickly than that, but this is fine. Also, you burned your ghost earlier. There was no way you were going to survive that. It would have been better if you held on to your ghost. Had you teleported a little bit oh, you're... you need to go get that farm. It's, again, very, very important. Like, one thing I have to say, when you're just learning the game, one of the most important things to focus is CS. Try and get that farm, because money is power. And that has never been more true than this season, as the power and items this game are so much higher. And yeah, in this case, I don't know what your Vi's doing, because the wave's pushed very far up, and there's no way you'd be able to go and help her. And unless she can kill the Volibear on her own, that literally wasn't going to do anything. But yeah.
I don't understand why the jungler is always like never helping me. They always seem to like ruin my lane and take the CS and not like kill the enemy laner.
That could be because it's low ELO. And the higher ELO you get, the more you'll notice that junglers invest their time farming their jungle and helping get kills, but don't necessarily come to like take your farm. That's not a good strat. Also, something else to mention is it doesn't look like you've warded once yet, and you really should. Like right there, you were just in the brush. You could have just dropped a ward in it, and that would provide a lot of safety. There is a deep ward. The Vibe placed that, which is nice. But with the blasting cone up, it's quite possible for the enemy jungle to get behind you. And if you don't have that ward in place, you're not going to have that vision. But yeah, again, the one thing I'd recommend more than anything for new players, focus on farm. Because like right now, the Volibear is not farming particularly well. But he still has a CS lead. If you focused on CS, like at this point, you could very easily be up 10, 20 CS. And that's including your death. I also really don't know why he's standing so far back. He doesn't understand the power of his champion. Because honestly, he could kick your ass if he wanted to.
I think he noticed me poking him in the lane, and he realized he had to respect me because I was doing really well.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Again, if he knew what he was doing, you wouldn't be winning these trades, even with poke. And something else I will also mention, at least when it comes to Urgot, your Q costs 80 mana, which is a ton. Your starting mana is just, like right now, you only have 480 mana. You use your Q 3 times, you're basically going to be out of mana after that. You really don't want to be using your Q except as a means to get close enough to use your E. Your focus should be using your E and your W, not your Q. He keeps doing that. I'm trying to figure out what this Volibear is trying to accomplish. It's so fucking weird, and he's dead. Wow.
Up with the mana issue, should I go tier early?
No, absolutely not. You just need to learn to be conservative with your mana usage. Also, this would be a great moment for you to back. I would not be doing what you're doing right here, because like very specifically, you're not going to be able to push this in all the way right now. You don't have enough mana to do that. Even if you did have enough mana to do that, the Volibear most certainly will arrive in time and be able to freeze it. There were 3 ranged minions there. Those 3 ranged minions basically ensure that the wave will freeze. Because it will be those... God, why does it keep doing that? Lock on camera. The minion wave... So basically, those 3 ranged minions, what they would do is they would hit against the 6 minions that are coming in from your side. And yeah, as you can see, like right now, like the Volibear, if he was smart, he'd freeze this, but he's not. But yeah, with the 3 ranged minions there, also you used Ghost to get back to lane faster. I would never recommend that. Ghost is it's a combat ability that can help you get kills and help you stay alive. It is not worth using to get an extra 2 or 3 CS. Absolutely not. Oh, and something that I will mention, using your Q to last hit is a good use of mana. If you would not be able to get the last hit otherwise, using your Q to get it is worth it. But using your Ghost in order to get within range to get the CS is really not worth it. But yeah, back to where I was before. With those 3 ranged minions there, the next wave of his would be 6 more minions coming up. Why did he just R? And now you should run. You should not be fighting, because you can't win this. Yeah, that's a problem. When the Volibear R'd on top of you, what you should have done is E'd on top of him, throw your Q to slow him down, and run away. You're not beating him after he throws his R like that because he's going to have a lot of extra health. And Volibear in general, until you hit level 9, will always win the extended fight. Always. His passive is more consistent than yours. You've got relatively long cooldowns on your abilities, so it won't... that trade won't work out. But this is something that you'll learn with experience. You'll learn which matchups, in general... which ones you can go in, which ones you can't, but as a rule of thumb, as a general rule of thumb with Urgot, until you're level 9, assume you can't win. There are definitely situations where you will be able to win at level 9. But, oh, excuse me, before level 9. But, like, again, that's something that requires experience to figure out. And in general, just assume you lose pre-9. Once you're 9, at that point you can look for fights, because at level 9 your W is max, at which point you now have sustained damage. The Volibear, at level 1, has sustained damage with his passive. His passive ensures that he's always doing a lot of extra damage. Without your W at 5 points, you just don't have the sustained damage to match it. If, however, throughout the course of the laning phase, you get enough auto attacks on him, that fire off extra shotguns on him, you're going to be able to whittle him down and then potentially look for an all-in. Like, if he's at half health, you can consider all-inning him at that point. Because your E, your W, and your R, all that together might actually be able to kill him. But if he's at full health, you should not look for a fight. Ever. Poking him, that's fine. But again, I wouldn't recommend using your Q to poke until you've got at least 3 points in. With only 1 point into it, the mana cost is just prohibitively high. Also, the Rift Scuttler, as we're seeing right now, the back of it, the eye on the back, does extra damage. And you as Urgot, with your W, can easily circle it and hit that eye. You're just right now standing still, which is reducing the amount of damage you can do. That eye is a lot of bonus damage. The Vi needs to smite that, and she's just not. Why is the Vi... Oh. The Vi waited till the very last second to... Wait, did she even get it? Oh, dear. Yeah, this is not going to work. Okay, you did. At least you got the Rift Herald before you died. That's good. The Vi completely forgot about it and ended up going for the trade. The Vi is actually really strong, shockingly.
Yeah, but she kind of trolls the whole game.
Yeah, I noticed that. She basically left you to die. Not only that, but that late smite was such a mistake. Like, if she'd smited earlier, at that point you could just walk away. By the time she smited it, I mean, there was no more running away because the Volibear was on top of it. That was... And also that very last second smite, she literally waited till the Rift Herald got down to under 100 health before she smited. And once again, you're... Like, okay. You once again used your Ghost, but you didn't use it for any purpose. There's basically 2 purposes for using Ghost. To get a kill and to run away. That's it. When you shouldn't be using Ghost for basically any other reason. Because it's a long Sorry, I need to repeat that. The follow there from Worst Light Skin, which, by the way, thank you for that, was very loud, so I missed what you just said. So repeat that, please.
I thought the Draven was gonna one-shot me because he's pretty fed, so I just wanted to get the Rift and then Ghost away to help my bot lane out.
Gotcha. In this case, again, this is something that you'll get with experience, but the Draven was only level 7 and he didn't have a completed item. There's no way he's killing you. Not if you just literally walk away. Your E is an incredibly powerful escape tool. Not only if you time it well, and this is something that requires a lot of practice, but during that 0.25 seconds, after you press it, you're basically immune to CC. Because your character does a wind-up animation. If any CC hits you at that point, it doesn't matter. You will, after 0.25 seconds, dash away, which is very powerful. If you time your E well, when you see CC coming, essentially, the CC won't do anything. You'll dash away and you'll be fine. If you're really worried about the Draven, what you should have done is drop the Rift Herald, E away. You would have been fine. If the Draven then starts chasing you, popping Ghost would not be a bad idea. Wow, that Volibear. Jesus, that Volibear. Oh! Wow, that's unlucky. So, the Volibear used his R, but he didn't use it within turret range, so the turret didn't turn off. And yes, right there, if you had Ghost, you would have killed him. 100%. If you had simply popped Ghost, he wouldn't be able to stay on top of you, and the turret would have killed him, and you would have lived. So, like right there, that immediately, if you didn't use your Ghost earlier, is a kill without a death. It's still alright that you got the kill, but it would have been a much more, it would have been a much bigger advantage had you done it like that. Oh, can I turn his... The problem with turning up his voice in Discord is that it can potentially get feedback because I'm I'm not using a headset. But I turned it up a little. Hopefully you guys can hear that. But either way.
So at this stage in the game, what do you think I should be doing?
So something else I'd like to mention. You went for Blade of the Ruined King first. It's an okay item on Urgot, but I would absolutely not recommend that as your first. There are much better items, specifically for Urgot. But yes, like right now, your focus should be essentially trying to get the turret. Like that should be your focus. That's okay. I mean, one thing I will say is that Blade of the Ruined King is really good against a tank like Volibear, but if you really want an anti-tank item, I highly recommend Black Cleaver instead. As Black Cleaver gives you much better stats. The Blade of the Ruined King, something to keep in mind is that you just... Okay, again, this is, I think, the third time I've seen you use Ghost that basically didn't have a purpose. Always hold your Ghost for a kill or an escape.
I thought that the Ghost gave the attack speed and would help me get the tower.
No, Ghost... Okay, so a couple of things to that. First, Ghost does not provide attack speed. It only provides movement speed. It says for 10 seconds, your champion can move through units and gains 38% movement speed. It doesn't actually give you attack speed. Like right now, if you had Ghost, you'd be able to run away. Although, amazingly enough, you might just get a kill almost. Almost. You needed to try and stay out of turret range. You actually could have potentially got a kill out of that. I like that you eat in. That was very good, because basically you were not getting away at that point. But you were potentially able to get a kill. That was very good. But yes, a couple of things to point out. First of all, Ghost doesn't give you attack speed. And even if it did, your W gets 0 benefit from attack speed. 0. Your W will fire 3 bullets a second, always. There's no way to increase or reduce that speed. Which is one of the reasons why attack speed is not a great stat on Urgot. Because in general, the attack speed just won't increase your damage. And that's another reason why Blade of the Ruined King's not a great item on Urgot, because it gives you attack speed. However, Urgot's W does apply on-hit effects at 50%. And since you're firing 3 shots a second, it means that you will actually do substantial damage with on-hit items. Which is why Blade of the Ruined King isn't the worst item to get, but again, I would highly recommend other choices. Like one thing I would suggest is, honestly, the suggested items page is pretty good. Zed. Who would be playing Zed at such a low elo?
Well, the thing with the suggested item, it tells me to go Gore Drinker, and I don't want to buy the item because I just feel like it's really cheap and OP, so I don't want to buy that.
Understandable then. If you don't like Gore Drinker, my recommendation would be Stridebreaker. As Stridebreaker, I mean, there are a few options that you could go for instead of Gore Drinker. Stridebreaker is my personal favorite because it gives you an active that dashes you towards a target, slows them down, and honestly, Urgot's a champion that once you hit level 9, you have a lot of sustained damage. Once you hit level 13, you have a massive amount of sustained damage. 2 big things to mention with Urgot. At level 9, you get access to your W firing constantly, which is a big boost in damage. At level 11 and a level 13, the cooldown on your passive gets reduced. At level 13, I think it's 1.5 seconds. Also, I don't know why you used your teleport. And this also would have been a great opportunity to use Ghost.
Well, I was flanking, so I wanted to just make sure Volibear was cut off.
There were a few mistakes there. Oh, no. Yeah, there were quite a few mistakes. So first of all, if you're going to flank somebody, you want to appear behind them. Where you teleported, you were here in the river. All you really needed to do with the Volibear past the river was just keep walking down the river. Because his escape route would be the direction you were going. You teleported over here, which was closer to your base. Which basically means that... Hold on. Can you not give me directed camera? Alright. You teleported here, which is not the direction that he would go if he's trying to run away. Because that's towards your base. You want to be, if you're going to teleport to flank, you teleport behind them or to the side. In addition to that, again, based on where you were, all you needed to do was just keep going down the river. And had you popped Ghost, there's no way the Volibear would have been able to run away. Missing your R isn't the end of the world. It happens. Even if you aim it well, they can juke. But you, like, right there, 3 people died. Had you simply continued down the river, popped Ghost then, the Volibear would have been the only one to die. God, that was unfortunate to watch. But yeah, again, this is something that requires practice. There's a reason why I don't recommend new players pick up League of Legends, because this game has a lot of things going on. And the learning curve is really high. Also, you should... turrets take less damage when there are no minions nearby. So face tanking a turret like that, you should only do if the turret like has a sliver of health. Because otherwise, you're just not going to do enough damage, and you're just going to lose most of your life.
I just wanted to get the gold from the turret plate, so...
Well, we're past the point of plates. That's something else to mention. At 14 minutes, the plates go down, at which point you don't get any gold from doing damage to turrets. You only get gold for killing. Again, there's a lot of mechanics to this game, so... the Volibear was waiting in the brush. That was... And that's the other thing, because of all that life, all the damage you took from face tanking the turret, the Volibear was able to casually kill you. If you were full health there, you potentially could have fought back. I missed a kill. Wait, what kill did I miss? Either way, look, there's a lot to talk about here. Going back at this point doesn't really serve too much of a purpose. Wait, AP Volibear? This is not AP Volibear. This is Tank Volibear that's going for some on-hit power, which is fine. So yes, continuing, like, in general, like, Urgot is a champion that you want to focus more on bruiser items. And lethality is not usually a great choice. Like, if you want to be going lethality on Urgot, I would recommend getting a lot better on him first. Because lethality does indeed work on Urgot. It allows you to kill people really fast, and right now damage is extremely high in the game. But it's one of those things that requires a lot more knowledge on the character first. I'd say get another 20, 30, 40 games in on Urgot before you want to go for something like lethality. Is Gnasher's Tooth viable on Urgot? I would say no. Because Gnasher's Tooth is an item that scales off of AP, and although it does have a useful on-hit effect, you never want to get AP on Urgot. Urgot scales only on AD. If you're going to be going for an on-hit item, like Blade of the Ruined King isn't bad, and Rage Blade isn't bad. If you want to go pure on-hit on Urgot, you can do that. But again, I wouldn't recommend it because these items provide you no durability. You want items that give you some health, some armor, some magic resist. Oh, that's good. He's dead. Nicely done. Very well executed. Something to mention about Zed. When he uses his R on you, he will appear on the other side of you from where he cast it. So if the R has been cast on you, you just E behind you and it will connect 100% of the time. And then once you do that, and that's something else to mention. R is a difficult skill shot to land, but if you land your E, your R cannot miss. It's something you need to build into your muscle memory. When you know you want to all in, when you know you want to kill somebody, you throw your E at the target. If it connects, immediately R in the opposite direction, and it will connect with them 100% of the time. The CC on your E is long enough to guarantee your R. Something else to mention, Urgot's W, while it's firing, slows you down. So, like, what you did right there, that teleport and ghost wasn't a bad idea, but because your W was still on, when you got within range, you slowed down. And slowing down meant that you were never able to get within range to use your E. Oh dear. The Z jumped backwards. Yuck. Oh god, and there's the Volibear. The Volibear did a nice flank. Like, that is exactly what you want to do when you're looking for a flank. You teleport to the side of the situation or behind, and then you go in. And this fight did not go well. Oh, God. But yes, like if I can give you some suggestions for items, Stride Breaker into oh god, what was the item I used to go? Geez, it's been so long since I've played. That's what it is. Ravenous Hydra. Like, Blade of the Ruined King is okay on Urgot. And I understand why somebody would want to get it because it provides you both a lot of damage. The on-hit of proc is very good. And it provides you healing. Ravenous Hydra is better, for Urgot especially. Because not only does it provide healing, like Blade of the Ruined King does, he's dead. Not only does it provide healing like Blade of the Ruined King, something else, you really shouldn't be doing this as nobody's going to be watching and it's time that you could be spending farm.
Well, there's this streamer I watch who does it all the time. His name is Trick2G. I don't know if you watched him, but like, it's pretty cool.
That's not one of those things you should copy until you're much better at the game. It's something that if you're a good player, doing that can tilt your opponent, but I mean, until you're at the point where you're consistent both in how you play the champion and how good you are, it is not a good idea because all it can do is slow you down. Because that's what that was doing. It slowed you down. You could have easily, from that point, after getting the kill, gone out and gotten more farm. Farm is money. Money is power. It's not worth it to do that. Like, if you're in lane, you get one of those nice kills. Doing that, at that point, can tilt your opponent. But you should never do it when it comes at a cost. If it means you're not getting farm, if it means that you're missing CS, if it means that you're not fighting with your allies, it's absolutely not worth it. So yes, Ravenous Hydra. Two things to mention about Ravenous Hydra. First things first is that it has Omnivamp. Something about Blade of the Ruined King is that it only has Lifesteal, and there is a big difference between that. Lifesteal only affects physical damage from auto attacks and on hit. Well, not even on hit effects. Like, it only works on things that count as an attack. Your W counts as an attack, your auto attacks count as an attack, but something to mention, most of Urgot's damage comes from his passive. It comes from those shotguns. That's where the majority of your damage comes from. And Blade of the Ruined King will not heal that. It will not provide healing for your shotguns. Omnivamp, on the other hand, will. Your W will, and it'll basically mean that all, like, you can look at the Ravenous Hydra down here. I mean, the Omnivamp's going down. That's getting nerfed, but it's still going to be a useful item on Urgot, I think. Honestly, I'm not entirely sure, but the point is, it provides Omnivamp, which means that all the damage you deal will provide healing. Your Q will provide healing, your passive will provide healing, your E will provide healing. The R execute won't, because I don't think it's allowed to do that. But the R initial damage will also provide healing. So, it's good. Not only that, but like Urgot already, you can't really control the wave at a certain point because okay, like right now you should... A little late on the blasting cone. That's one of those times where you needed to turn off your W, fire the blasting cone, get over the wall, and you would have been fine. But yeah, something else to mention is that at a certain point you can't freeze the lane, you can't create a situation where you can deny your opponent farm by basically having it rest in front of your turret. And Ravenous Hydra will just basically boost up your clear speed. It'll allow you to kill minions a lot faster as a group. You press W, and a wave will vanish in seconds. So, like, Ravenous Hydra provides a lot of useful things for Urgot. So, I would recommend Ravenous Hydra and Stride Breaker. And something else to mention is that right now, there's a lot of healing in the game. It almost always makes sense to go for an anti-heal item, but yeah. Oblivion Orb, as we've already mentioned before, doesn't provide you extra anti-heal. If you stack items with Grievous Wounds, it doesn't do anything. If you want more Grievous Wounds, then you should upgrade the item, and Executioner's Calling can be turned into Kempunk Chainsword, which is the one you should go for. It says basically, if you get your opponent down to half health, they will have 60% reduced heal. So that would be the thing I would recommend next. You actually got 3 anti-heal items. It doesn't stack. Interestingly enough, it's actually not bad to go for Thornmail and Chempunk Chainsword, because Thornmail also provides other useful stats like damage reflect, but I wouldn't do it in general. I'd try to find a different armor item if that's what you want to do. But yes, next time, instead of getting the 3 anti-heal items, go for Chempunk Chainsword. It will make it so that you get an opponent down to 50% health, they can no longer heal basically at all. A 60% heal reduction is significant. But yeah, I do also want to mention that, yes, Prowler's Claw is really not a bad item on Urgot. I personally prefer Stride Breaker. Oh, teleported in. Really wish the UI was better here. Oh, that was a pretty sweet Stride Breaker, but unfortunately there was nobody on your team here. That's something else to mention. Hold on. Before, it looks like the surrender vote just happened, but just another thing I'd like to mention is Urgot is a champion that is a great team fighter. Absolutely fantastic team fighter. And post level 9, he's also a pretty good duelist. But he's not one of those champions that can run into a team where there's 3 or 4 people alive and expect to get kills. Unless you're really fed, which you were not this game. So teleporting into the fight when it was already over and your teammates were already dead, it's too late. At that point, you should have just ran away because you were not going to be getting any kills and you were just going to die for it. But again, I feel like a lot of the stuff that we saw here in this game is something that boils down to experience. Because League of Legends, honestly, until you've played a few hundred games, you're going to be a beginner. Seriously. It takes a few hundred games to move beyond beginner status. Because the learning curve is so high, and something else to keep in mind is a lot of people have been playing for a long time. And it's a big advantage. It is a huge advantage to have the experience of playing many games. It helps you build muscle memory. And that's something else that I want to mention is the more you play the game, the better your muscle memory gets. And then your decisions become much simpler, much more straightforward. But in conclusion, before I ask what questions you have, a few things to mention. To get better, I mean, there were a lot of things that you could definitely learn from this game. The first thing to mention is, until you're level 9, assume you're weaker than your lane opponent. Until you have the knowledge of playing enough Urgot games to know that you're stronger. Until you have enough Urgot games to know when you're stronger, it's best to assume you're weaker than your opponent. So just look to farm, and that's something else to mention. When you think about kills, a kill basically translates to 20 CS. You get that kill, it's roughly the equivalent to 20 farms. So if you are farming really well, like right now, the Volibear at the end of this game has a 40 CS advantage. That's 2 kills. That's 2 kills right there. You don't need to kill your opponent to get stronger than them. In Urgot's case, you hit level 9, you get a massive power spike. You hit level 13, you get an even more massive power spike. At level 9 and 13, that's when you should look to fight. That's when you should look to all in. And this is something else I would mention, like in general, focus on farming and focus on nothing else, essentially, until you take this turret down. Once you take the opposing turret, at that point you could look for other things. Once that turret's gone, you should very much consider sticking with your team, roaming with your team, frontlining for your team, because that Urgot's role in team fights, that's what it is. You want to be that front line. You want to absorb the damage for your team and set up situations for kill. Your R is also an amazing team fight tool. When somebody on your team, like when it looks like somebody in the enemy team is going to get focused down and kill you, throw your R at them. You get the execute off of it, the fear from your R can win team fights. If your R ever gets 3 or more fears on the enemy team, you've basically won the team fight for your team. And that's something else. Once this turret's down, again, this is a much more advanced thing, but in general, you win games by focusing on objectives more than kills. Because objectives are how you end the game. Not only that, but when you take a turret, it's not just gold for you, it's gold for your whole team. When you take a dragon, it's a permanent buff for your team. When you take Baron, it creates a situation where you can then go for turrets, take multiple turrets off of it, go for inhibitors. And winning the game, the goal, like, the way you win the game in general, besides team fighting, is taking objectives. Like, if you take down an inhibitor, even if you kill no one on the enemy team, that is pressure that is going to last until that inhibitor comes back up. When the inhibitor is down, it allows you to then go for other objectives. They have to deal with the super minions that will be pushing down the mid. At which point, you can just group with your team and go for other turrets, get more global gold. That gold is huge. Like right now, at the end of this game, like you can see, they had an 8k gold lead. An 8k gold right there. That's 3 complete items. 3 massive complete items. And one last thing that I'd want to mention before I'll let you ask some questions in case I miss some stuff. Levels are also a big deal. You'll notice at the end of this game, he was level 17 and you were level, I think, 15 or 14. Each level is over 1,000 gold in stats as well. Like that's something else to keep in mind. Like putting things into perspective. 20 farm is a kill. A level is at least 1,000 gold in stats. All of this stuff adds up. When you have a level advantage against your opponent, it means you have a better chance of killing them. When you have a gold advantage against your opponent and you've spent that money, that's something else to keep in mind. If you have 2,000 gold waiting to spend, that's 2,000 gold in items you don't have on you. That's 2,000 gold in strength you don't have. But after you buy, after you spent that 2,000 or 3,000 gold, if you have that level advantage, all of these things stack up and make it easier to kill your opponent. But yes, like as a newer player, I would focus on those few things. First of all, on Urgot, is farming. Try your hardest to farm as best as you can. Try to avoid using your Q unless you have to, because 80 mana is an absolute ton. Your W is much cheaper. I think it starts at 40 and goes down to 0. So just using your W is much, much cheaper. In addition to that, pre-level 9, don't look to fight. As you gain more experience with Urgot, you'll be able to determine when you can actually get a kill pre-9, because it can happen. If your opponent makes enough mistakes and you capitalize them, you can also get kills even early on, even pre-9, but don't focus on that. I would spend like 95% of your future effort in this game focusing on farming. Learn how to CS. Also learn how to use your E, both as an offensive ability and as a defensive one. And as a last thing I'll mention, again, Ghost is something, and Flash, these summoners, are things you should only ever use to get a kill or save a life. Usually your own. But yeah. Something happened? Oh, I'm too loud, sorry. And by the way, so did you have any questions after all that?
Yeah, one question I have is, should I always take Ghost or should I go Flash in some matches?
I personally love Ghost, but Ghost requires a lot of knowledge, because Ghost is something that doesn't immediately help you. Ghost is something that, and that's something else to mention, like if you hover over Ghost, it says, for 10 seconds your champion can move through units and gains 44% movement speed. But it's like, it's something that lasts for 10 seconds, which means that to get the full value out of it, you need 10 seconds time of it active to fully get used to it. Flash is something that instantly works. You use Flash, it's instant. If you need to escape and you don't have time to think about it, Flash will work much better than Ghost. Ghost is like, I would actually recommend new players to Urgot to take Flash, not Ghost. But once you become more experienced, you can try Ghost out, because at that point you'll have the experience and knowledge to know when you need to run away and when you can go for a kill, at which point Ghost can become a very powerful tool. And something else to mention, again, I mentioned this earlier, but this is probably not something that's going to be easy for you to practice. Your E can ignore hard CC. If you time it, if you press your E and get hit by hard CC during that 0.25 seconds where Urgot is reaching back, at that point, any hard CC that hits you, you'll ignore and your E will still go forward. And in essence, your E can act like a flash in that case, because people will not expect it most of the time. If you use your E to run away after a hard CC, like right when a hard CC is about to hit, usually like a smart player, when they throw a hard CC at you, at that point they'll throw all their skill shots at you as well, because you're not going to be moving. But if you time your E well, the CC will hit you, and then you'll dash away, and all those skill shots will miss. Your E can oftentimes be as good as Flash, but that requires experience, that requires practice. So those would be the two things that, like, but the problem with that is that you need to know the hard CC of basically every champion in the game. It's a knowledge issue. And as you get better at the game, as you get more knowledge of the champions, the things they can do, recognizing when that hard CC is coming, you'll be able to use your E much more effectively as a defensive tool, not just an offensive one. It's much easier to use E as an offensive tool because it's straightforward. You know what it's doing. But to use it as a defensive tool requires timing, which you'll get with more experience. So any other questions you have?
My last question is, who do you think is the hardest matchup for Urgot? Because I think, for me personally, Garen is pretty OP.
Honestly, Garen is probably one of the easiest champions for Urgot, but again, this is something that requires knowledge, because you need to know when you can go in and when you can't. Garen is also just a very simple, basic champion. You know exactly what he's going to do. He telegraphs it every time. But until you get the knowledge on how to deal with Garen, I can understand him being difficult, because Garen is a champion that if you do not play around his strengths, it's so easy to play and so easy to succeed on him. And in lower ELOs, that's true. Garen is one of those characters that, again, once you get more experience on Urgot, you'll look back and say, wow, why did I ever have trouble with this champion? The champions that can really give Urgot trouble are the champions that are strong early on and have the ability to basically zone you away. Champions like Kennen, Gnar, Jace. These are champions that are ranged and make it really difficult for you to really even interact with them. A champion like Garen, it's so easy to basically just auto-attack him, get shotgun blasts off, and basically whittle him down. If he tries to Q at you, you time your E. When he gets within range and lands his Q, almost always the first thing Garen will do is press his E, which is that spinning the ability of his, I don't remember what it's called, but if you time your E so that his Q connects and then you dash away, his E won't do any damage because you won't be next to him anymore. At which point, his strongest tool, the ability that does the most damage on him, will be wasted. At that point, you could turn around and just hurt him, do as much damage to him as you want. I mean, that's the thing that I like about Garen. He's so very predictable. When he uses his Q, you see it coming. When that Q is about to land, that's when you want to throw your E, and you throw your E away. Unless you're stronger than him, in which case you throw your E at him and then you murder him. Something else is that his silence will stop you from turning on your W, but if your W is already on, it can't stop it. And at a certain, like at level 9, at level 13, you're probably stronger than him as long as you haven't died earlier on. At which case, you could just E at him instead of Eing away, because you will probably kill him first. But yeah, again, this is something that requires experience and knowledge. The hardest champions, the ones that I mentioned, in low ELO, you're not going to need to worry about because they require a lot of skill to play well. Like one of my most hated champions is Urgot is Aatrox. But Aatrox requires a lot of skill to use well because those skill shots of his are very small. At least his initial Q is a very small knock-up area. And if your opponent isn't skilled on Aatrox, they won't land it. They'll miss it most of the time. Like the champions you need to worry about in lower ELO are very different than the champions you need to worry about in higher ELO. But so like the champions that I'm afraid of, you're not even going to see because nobody's going to play them. You're seeing, like, this game you saw Volibear. Very simple, very easy champion to play. Garen, very simple, very easy champion to play well. I also wouldn't be surprised if you saw things like Jax or Nasus. These are very, like, I'd say Nasus is a really annoying champion for Urgot because at a certain point he's stronger than you and there's really no way for you to turn that around. But yeah. Any other questions before we call this an end to the coach session?
So at what point do you think I'll get into high elo, like maybe platinum?
If you focus on the things that I'm talking about here, like you need to get to the point where you consistently get more farm than your opponent. You need to get to the point where you have knowledge of literally every champion in the game. You know what abilities they have. You have a basic idea of the cooldowns those abilities have. You have a basic idea of how those abilities can be used in lane and in team fights. That's a lot. That is a lot of knowledge. There's over, there's 150 champions in the game almost. That is something that's going to require time. If your goal is to get to platinum and you really focus on it, like, it could take you over a year, honestly, if you're, like, hundreds of games. I'm not kidding. Hundreds of games. Because you need to get that knowledge through. You need, like, it's staggering how much knowledge there is in the game. Like, you need to understand when Volibear's strong, when he's weak. You need to understand all of his abilities. You need to understand, basically, the cooldowns, what telegraphs them. And then the same is true with Nidalee, Zed, Jaraven, Soraka, and every other champion in the game. You also need to know how you can synergize with those champions if they're on your team. You need to know what these champions can do for you. You need to know when you can go all in with them, when you can face tank for them. Like, who's going to be your carry? That's another thing. You got, not every champion can carry. When they can carry is at different times. How they carry is different. Hundreds of games. It's going to take literally hundreds of, like, from what I saw here, the amount of knowledge you need to get to the point of being a plat level player is hundreds of games. It's not a process you can just shortcut, because it requires muscle memory and it requires knowledge, and both of those things require time and effort. What you can do to help accelerate the process is really focus on the stuff I mentioned. Farming, objectives, learning how to use your E to its maximum. These are things that you can do in the short term to improve your game and become better at your champion and climb. But to get to plat level, you need a lot of knowledge, and that's going to take time. Any other questions?
Could you just make a Google Doc of the coaching points if you have time?
That is not a bad idea. I can probably do that at some point. That's really not a bad idea. I'll need to check this video again at some point in the future and see about that. That's not a bad idea. Although something I can also mention is that there are already really good guides out there. God, I'm trying to remember who it was. There was an Urgot main that has a guide out there. I'd highly recommend checking it out. Look at some Urgot guides, because in the end, a lot of the stuff I said, they echo. And they've got more in-depth information and probably more accurate information now, because the more time goes by, the less my knowledge is going to matter, because that knowledge, like, even if you've played as many hundreds of thousands of games as I've played, that knowledge will diminish pretty quickly. But yeah, check out some of those guides. Some Goliath games, he has a good guide, yes. He wasn't the one I was thinking of, but he has a very good guide, so I would recommend checking that out. Look that up. But yeah, anything else?
No, thank you, Tomer. I really appreciate your time.
Sure thing. My pleasure. It's always, like, I enjoy doing these coaching sessions. I think I'm a natural teacher, and if I had it in me to teach kids, I probably would be a school teacher, but yeah, I'd rather stream. So this is my opportunity. So I like doing it. And thank you for the game. That was fun. It's always, I genuinely enjoy these coaching games. So thank you. GG.